Hello, everybody. Michael, Spades Consulting. We're going to talk about AI and the chaos that's going to come from it. So, I'm going to try to refine this down and keep this one short because ideally I'd like to get into other subjects today. So, right off the top, what happens when AI automates, let's say it automates nearly all of the white collar workers? If you think about it long enough, you come to a realization that you can't just automate 40% of the workforce and keep the peace. You have to automate 80% of the workforce or 100% of the active labor force in order to keep the peace. You have to offer people a base level deal, a universal basic income essentially. Because if all of the white collar workers were to get laid off, obviously you're talking about a potential economic upheaval that'd be pretty unruly. All right, so let's say 40% of labor is white collar. If you just lay them off and hand them an unemployment check, you're going to have a hard time getting general compliance from the blue collar workforce who has to work 40 to 80 hours a week to still barely keep roofs over their head. So you're going to have, if you only automate half the workforce, you're going to have a gigantic uprising because nobody's going to go to work. Literally nobody. So you have to have some kind of universal guaranteed income in order to keep the peace. How do you justify? How do you justify some people having more than others when all of the myths are gone? This is a legitimate thing. Most people, they will, it's a simple argument of why some people have more than others. Some people work harder, some people do more, some people are more efficient, some people are more charismatic, some people are more this, more that. No, 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 no. Essentially, what it comes down to is if you didn't make it, you didn't try hard enough in one aspect or the other. That all falls away once you have a universal basic income, once you have everybody on the same unemployment program. How do you justify one person having a nicer house? How do you justify one person having a nicer car? The entire human value system is going to collapse because of AI. How can you justify Bezos having yet another super yacht? It's not going to be able to. And this is the thing, this is fundamental. Fundamentally, we're going into, if AI succeeds, we're going into forced technological communism. And it can either be neutral or it could be totalitarian. We're not going to get onto what totalitarian AI techno feudal communism looks like, but we are going to just kick around the idea a little bit. Essentially, what ends up happening, um, oh, hell, what movie was it? I think it was Enemy at the Gates. Towards the end, we tried to create this, like, because, they ended up with the Politburo dude versus Zaitsev. And one of the girls of the Red Army, one of the snipers, ends up falling in love with Zaitsev, and of course, Politburo, Soviet. Oh God, what would he be called? Would he be a commissar? Commissar dude gets jelly about it, extremely jealous, and then tries doing smear campaigns. Yeah. Once you destroy the base value system for human beings with AI, People are going to, you're not going to be able to justify some people having more than others anymore. And what can't be won by economic means will be won by force, which is why it's probably going to turn totalitarian. You're going to have, you're, because we can't trust human beings to be good, you are going to have a police state to handle general enforcement and peacekeeping, just because you're not going to be able to validate. You're like, the validity of why some have more than others is going to completely collapse. Jealousy is going to take over. You have no way around that. Once the value system implodes, it implodes for everything. There's no solution. There is no solution for that. If it doesn't work, if the AI techno future doesn't happen, if AI, let's say the bubble bursts, and, you know, most people don't really take into account that that is literally all this country is banking on right now. If the AI revolution fails, so does the United States. It's a bloated monstrosity. You can literally spend years talking about it and still have infinite content. But we're going for broke with this as a country. If we don't succeed with it, there is no way you're going to be able to rebalance the structure of Western society to the point where it won't collapse. You have to look at things for what they are. The United States, even though a decent amount of money, time, and energy was spent and made trying to set up these long-term systems, Social Security is a burning dumpster fire. Most of the retirement programs are dumpster fires. For instance, this is a good one. Ukraine war, freezing Russian assets. Do you know how many pensions were reliant on Russian stocks to produce 10% plus yields? They were literally the only thing holding the pensions afloat. All of the retirement programs are built on a mountain of sand because they're all built on actual producing countries that produce anything other than just more paper money out into the world, which is all we've done in this country for more than 20 years now. We export inflation, we buy stuff. And being the world's reserve currency, we have to maintain that. This is also another issue with Trump. Getting America off of essentially breaking enough of the deals and enough of the bonds to drive people away from using the dollar as the reserve currency would open up the opportunity and stabilize the social situation in the United States over time if it honestly worked out. But you would need 20 years to pull that off. You can break and shake the confidence of the world in the dollar pretty easily. We're already down 20%. Gold and silver is going to the moon. There's a decent amount of damage there. Constantly threatening tariffs does a decent amount of damage. Oh, God. That's another video in itself. We'll bounce back to AI. We're going for broke on AI. If we fail to achieve the AI revolution, it's over for this country. I fully believe it's over for this country. Just because you need something as disruptive as a justification for 80% of the workforce at least to be on permanent unemployment, you need something massive like that in order to provide the justification of rebalance society and deal primarily with the massive wealth inequality, which does need to be dealt with. There's a couple of ways to do it, but the thing is, the entire structure of the Western economies is geared in that pyramid running money to the top. You can continue to inflate if you backfill the bottom, the base of the pyramid, but you can't get around the fact that you have to print faster and faster to devalue the wealth concentration at the top into the bottom. And regardless, you end up with hyperinflation. The end result, no matter what, in a civilized country, is you're going to get inflation. But what do we do about the human value system? What do we do about the fact that the majority, and being a guy, most men base their identity on their work. Dude's a union electrician for 20 years. He's not him anymore. He is an electrician. Dude who's been welding for a decade isn't, Bob Bobson. He is a welder. Men do not function well without a labor identity because for the most part in Western countries, there is no ceremony tied to manhood, adulthood, anything. There is no finding an actual identity. There's no actually finding yourself. What we do in the West is we piecemeal and take parts of random identities that could come from any source of media. You start picking and pulling pieces together and you assemble an identity out of that, but it's still nowhere near as powerful as your labor identity. What do you do when you're not needed anymore? What are people going to do when they're not needed anymore, when their labor is not just made redundant and unnecessary, but it will actually be punished? And it's like, at first, nothing will happen in terms of punishing people for productivity. But at a certain point, it will. They're going to have to clamp down because if you look at the pandemic, what did people do? They started running up the prices of lumber. Everybody and their mothers started to use it as an opportunity to fix up their houses, additions, all sorts of work, new decks. You're going to have a lot of bored people, and a lot of bored people who know how to build stuff. You're going to have more and more time, energy, effort going towards people just doing things to keep themselves busy because they don't know how to sit by themselves in silence. AI is the only thing that the US has going for it if it wants to try to rebalance itself. But regardless of what happens, there is a 100% guarantee that one way or another, this system is going to either have a massive reformation or it's going to collapse. And in the process of reformation, there's still going to collapse. Like, society's already fallen apart quite a bit. You see with the younger generations that they don't know what the hell they're going to do. I mean, Gen Z, they're already kind of meh. Gen Alpha, they're coming out of the system like, okay, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? What isn't going to be automated by the time they grow up? This is the thing. The AIs can do a better job than people can. And the things that it's weak on now, it'll be there in 3, 4, 5 years, if that. I mean, most people should know, like surgeons being a perfect example. Do you know how many surgeries are guided now? Most surgeons for the most part, there was a lot of alcoholism when it came to surgery. A lot of alcoholics in surgery. Their hands get shaky. And, as they age, their hands naturally get shakier anyway. So you start involving robotics, and it wipes out all of the shake to just control joysticks. You turn down the sensitivity so if your hand twitches a little bit, you don't kill somebody by cutting their carotid or something, cutting a major artery. AI is going to take it all. But most importantly, it's going to take away from most people their reason to exist. And people aren't going to be okay with that. When you legitimately get to the point where people just wake up, they have no jobs to go to, they've got nothing to really occupy their time, they'll try, a good chunk of people will try to find something to occupy their time to keep their mind at ease. But you're going to have, eventually, you're going to have all of the psychological traumas and everything that could possibly drive a person insane will start to creep in. I honestly think that, AI being, again, the only real answer in terms of something big enough to redistribute society in a more favorable direction. But it's also going to possibly be the worst thing to ever happen to humanity just on the auxiliary costs. It's going to be really, really hard to rebalance a society that doesn't need people anymore. But I don't want to go down a doomer black hole here. So we're going to end it on that. I've been Michael. You guys have a good one. Enjoy yourselves to the best you can. Until next time.